He paid me to pretend to love his son, but we're the ones who couldn't pretend any longer. He offered me 10 grand to fake date his son. I should have walked away, but my rent was due, and my heart was a fool waiting to get wrecked. I met Nathaniel Lockwood at a charity gala neither of us belonged to. Him, in a crumpled tux, sipping champagne with the kind of smirk that begged for a punch. Me, in a waiter's uniform, balancing overpriced hors d'oeuvres and the weight of $30,000 in student debt. His father, Mr. Lockwood, the billionaire hotel tycoon, watched from across the room like a hawk in Armani. When the older Lockwood pulled me aside after the event, I thought I was getting fired for pocketing leftover shrimp. Instead, he offered me a job. "You seem agreeable," he said, dabbing the corner of his mouth with a linen napkin like it disgusted him to speak plainly. "My son has a tendency to rebel. And you think I'm the leash?" I asked. He didn't flinch. "I think you're hungry. And desperate enough to play along." He was right on both counts. The deal was simple: pretend to be Nathaniel's boyfriend for 3 months. Attend family dinners. Make him look respectable. Curb his reckless habits and keep him from dating models who only saw dollar signs. In exchange, $10,000, wired directly to my account, plus bonuses for good behavior. I said yes before I could talk myself out of it. The first time I met Nathaniel in that context, as his boyfriend burst out laughing. "You're kidding," he said, tossing his leather jacket onto a velvet couch in his Manhattan penthouse. "You? Seriously? You're like if a library and a thrift store had a baby." "I'm aware," I said, deadpan. "And you're like if an Instagram filter got drunk and decided to ruin someone's credit score." He blinked, then grinned. Touché. From the start, Nathaniel was everything I wasn't. Loud. Chaotic. Golden, in that way rich boys with nothing to lose often are. He drove too fast, spent too much, kissed with no warning, and laughed like the world was a joke told only to him. And yet, behind his sarcasm and swagger, there was something fragile. Something aching. Our first fake date was a brunch with his family. His mother was gracious, his father cold. Nathaniel squeezed my hand under the table when the conversation turned to inheritances and business mergers. I played my part perfectly. Smiled. Defended him. Said I was proud of him. He looked at me differently after that. "You didn't have to do that," he said when we got back to his apartment. "I know," I said. "But I wanted to." We kept up the act. Instagram posts. Paparazzi shots. Kisses that started as performances and lingered too long. He started cooking breakfast badly but with effort. I started staying over first out of convenience, then because leaving felt wrong. Some nights, when the city fell quiet and the buzz of pretense wore off, he'd sit on the balcony and tell me things I knew he didn't tell anyone else. "My father thinks love is just branding," he said once, staring out at the skyline. "He doesn't believe in it. So he throws money at anything that might make him look human." "And what do you believe?" I asked. He looked at me, then really looked, and for the first time, didn't joke. "I believe love is the only thing worth being ruined by." I wanted to kiss him then. Not because of the contract. Not because anyone was watching. Because I wanted to. But I didn't. Not yet. The moment it all shifted was on a weekend trip to the Hamptons, where Mr. Lockwood hosted a 4th of July gala. I was arm in arm with Nathaniel, smiling for photos, when his father pulled me aside again. "You're doing well," he said, like I was a dog who'd learned a trick. "But don't forget this is a role. And roles end." I nodded. But that night, Nathaniel kissed me when no one was looking. And I kissed him back like I'd forgotten it was fake. That was the beginning of the unraveling. Suddenly, every touch had weight. Every laugh, every sigh, every moment alone felt dangerous. We stopped pretending when no one was around. And then, we stopped pretending even when people were. I should have ended it. Reminded us both that this was a business deal. But how do you walk away from the only person who makes you feel real? The first time we had sex, it was after an argument. He accused me of using him. I accused him of hiding. We screamed. And then we fell into each other like a dam breaking. It was messy. It was beautiful. It was a disaster waiting to happen. Afterward, he whispered, "You know my father will kill us if he finds out this isn't an act anymore." I kissed his collarbone. Then maybe we keep pretending. Just for him. But secrets rot. And love, real love, doesn't hide forever. 3 weeks later, Mr. Lockwood found out. He didn't scream. He didn't threaten. He simply handed me a check for the final payment. And said, "You're done." Nathaniel didn't say a word when I left. He just stood in the doorway, jaw tight, eyes unreadable. That night, I cried harder than I ever had in my life. But endings aren't always the end. And love, stupid, inconvenient, miraculous love, has a way of coming back when you least expect it. I went back to my one-bedroom apartment in Queens like a criminal returning to his hideout after a failed heist. The place looked smaller, colder. It smelled like burnt coffee and unspoken truths. Everything I'd touched at the Lockwood penthouse, the marble counters, the linen sheets, Nathaniel's skin, felt galaxies away. I stared at the check Mr. Lockwood gave me. $15,000. Clean, crisp, silent. I dropped it in the drawer beside my bed like it was radioactive. For days, I didn't leave the apartment. My phone lit up constantly with messages from gossip blogs, notifications, and one missed call from an unknown number that I knew was Nathaniel. I didn't answer. Because if I heard his voice, I wouldn't survive it. The tabloids had a field day. Nathaniel Lockwood's PR boyfriend, mystery, romance, or ruse, they speculated, spinning our carefully curated love story into a headline that chewed us up and spit us out. It was all performance to them. And in a way, it had been. Until it wasn't. I got an email a week later from a photographer who had taken a candid shot of us. It wasn't staged. No one had posed. It was just Nathaniel looking at me while I laughed, his gaze soft, almost reverent. "You should keep this," the photographer had written. "It's the only real thing I saw all night." I saved it. I didn't know why. Maybe because it proved something had happened. Something worth remembering. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. I took on freelance gigs. Background acting. Bartending. Anything to forget. Anything to exhaust myself so that I wouldn't lie awake thinking about him. But he haunted everything. The cereal aisle where he once fake proposed to me for a dare. The park bench where we shared a too salty pretzel and a kiss that lingered. The scar on my thumb from when he tried to teach me how to open champagne and I cut myself on the wire. None of it was pretend anymore. Then came the letter. It was handwritten. No return address. Just my name in a familiar scrawl. "If this reaches you, I hope you haven't changed your number. I'm not allowed near you, Dad made that clear." I signed something. But I need to say this anyway. I don't know what part of us was real for you. I don't even know what's real for me most days. But when I was with you, I didn't feel broken. That has to count for something, doesn't it? I miss you. Not the version of you I introduced to cameras and society dinners. I missed the you who made fun of my cooking. The you who fell asleep in the car with your mouth open. The you who made me feel like I was enough, even when I was falling apart. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder. But I'm fighting now. Love, Nate. I read the letter 10 times. I memorized the creases, the ink smudges where his hand must have trembled. I pressed it to my chest and breathed in the ghost of him. And then I ran. Not away but toward. I knew where to find him. He always said he went to the Brooklyn Bridge when he needed to think. It was midnight when I got there. The city was sleeping, but the wind was wide awake. He was leaning on the railing, hoodie up, headphones in. I didn't call his name. I just walked up beside him and said, "You're still the worst at disguises." He turned. His eyes widened. "You came." Of course I did. There was silence. 1,000 cars passed below us. A ferry honked in the distance. The wind tossed his hair in every direction, but his eyes never left mine. "I thought I ruined everything," he said finally. "You did." He flinched. "But so did I added. We stood like that for a long moment. Not touching. Just looking. Two people suspended over water and regret. He pulled something from his pocket. A ripped piece of contract, our original deal, torn down the middle. "I don't want to play pretend anymore," he said. "If that's what you're here for, I can't." I didn't let him finish. I kissed him. Hard. Honest. Full of the weeks we'd lost and the words we hadn't dared say. When we pulled apart, he whispered, "So what now?" I shrugged. "Now, we be real. Whatever that means. However messy it gets." He laughed softly. "You sure? I come with baggage. And trust issues. And a father who probably hired a private investigator to follow me here. I come with debt, sarcasm, and a tendency to overthink everything," I replied. "Sounds like a disaster," he said. "Or a really good story." We walked the bridge until dawn. He held my hand like it was something sacred. And maybe it was. The fallout came fast. Mr. Lockwood sent his lawyers. There were threats. Rumors. But Nathaniel was ready. He renounced the inheritance. Walked away from the company. Said in a press conference, "I'd rather be broke and loved than rich and hollow." People didn't know what to do with that. They labeled him reckless. Immature. But some called him brave. He and I moved in together, nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom walk-up in Brooklyn. I worked nights at a theater bar. He started writing, of all things. Said it helped him figure out what the hell was going on in his head. We fought, sometimes. Over stupid stuff. Laundry. Groceries. My tendency to shut down when overwhelmed. His to explode when afraid. But we made it work. We built something real out of something fake. The first time he said "I love you" wasn't during a candlelit dinner or a grand gesture. It was while we were doing dishes, water sloshing everywhere, him wearing one of my old college t-shirts. He just looked at me and said it like a fact. "I love you." And I knew. We were no longer pretending. We didn't fall into a picture-perfect life after that. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was real life with traffic, rent hikes, sleepless nights, and sharp words thrown like knives when we were tired or scared. But God, it was ours. There were days I wanted to walk away. Days he did too. But we didn't. We stayed. That was the difference. Our first real crisis came when Nathaniel got a call from his mother. It was a quiet Sunday morning. I was making eggs. He was feeding toast crusts to a neighborhood cat we hadn't named yet but somehow treated like a tenant. "She's sick," he said when he hung up. I stopped stirring. "What kind of sick?" "Pancreatic cancer," he said flatly. "Late stage." I waited for the sarcasm. The emotional armor. But it didn't come. "I should go to her," he said. "Even if just to say goodbye." He hadn't spoken to his family in almost a year. After the press conference, his father cut him off financially and emotionally. His mother had sent a single text, "I'm proud of you. But I can't pick sides." It nearly destroyed him. So when he decided to go, I didn't ask if he wanted me there. I just packed a bag. The house in Connecticut was exactly as I remembered. Cold. Beautiful. Hollow. His mother lay in a sunroom surrounded by books and machines. Her skin was pale, her voice faint, but her eyes lit up when she saw Nathaniel. And when she saw me, she smiled. "You're the one," she whispered. "The real one." I knew it. He cried after she fell asleep. In the hallway. On my shoulder. She always knew how to read through Dad's games, he choked out. I hated her for not fighting harder. But maybe she fought in her own way. We stayed 3 days. On the second night, I found a photo album under her bed. Inside, tucked between pages of Nathaniel's baby pictures, was a Polaroid of us from one of our fake dates. But someone had scribbled on it in blue pen. "Sometimes we fake things so long we forget they were real all along." I kept that photo. Still have it in my wallet. We buried her 2 months later. Mr. Lockwood was there, of course. Stiff, black-suited, silent. He didn't speak to us at the service. Didn't even look our way. Until after the burial. Then, without ceremony, he walked over to Nathaniel and extended a hand. "I was wrong," he said. Nathaniel stared at it. Then at me. Then took it. "You still are," he replied. "But thanks for trying." And that was it. A handshake. A crack in years of stone. Things changed after that. Slowly. Nathaniel published a Buka memoir, thinly veiled, full of sarcasm and raw honesty and heartbreak. It got picked up by a mid-size publisher and, to everyone's surprise including his own, it did well. He was on panels. Podcasts. Late-night shows. And he never once said I was just some guy he used to date. Every time he talked about me, he used the same 3 words. He saved me. I never knew how to respond to that. I didn't save him. Not really. But maybe we saved each other. Because while he was writing, I started going back to school. Online classes, then night courses. I finally finished my degree. Got a job at a nonprofit that helped LGBTQ+ teens find housing, therapy, and legal help. It was hard, emotional, draining work, but it mattered. And that mattered to me. One of the kids we helped once asked me, "How do you know when it's real love?" I smiled and said, "When it scares you and heals you in the same breath." The proposal wasn't grand. It wasn't a flash mob or a sky-written message. It was a Tuesday. Rainy. We were eating Thai food on the floor because our table broke a week earlier and we kept forgetting to fix it. He looked at me, holding a piece of tofu with chopsticks like it might explode. Then he said, "Wanna be my forever fake boyfriend?" I choked on my noodles. When I stopped coughing, I laughed. "You're serious?" He nodded. He pulled a small velvet box from his hoodie pocket. Inside was a ring, not gold or platinum, just a simple band engraved with a tiny lightning bolt. An inside joke from our first date. "I can't promise I'll never mess up," he said. "But I can promise I'll never stop choosing you." I didn't cry. Not then. But I did say yes. And I wore that ring like it was armor. We got married in the community garden across from our apartment. 60 people, cheap wine, lots of flowers. He wore Converse. I wore a suit I borrowed from my boss. The cat showed up. We finally named her Lemon. During the vows, Nathaniel said, "I once thought love was something you bought, or faked, or threw around like a firecracker. But you taught me it's something you build. Brick by brick. And you never stop building." I said, You were a contract. A paycheck. A risk. And now you're the safest place I know. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. We danced to a Spotify playlist one of the teens from my nonprofit made for us. Half the guests didn't know the lyrics. Everyone sang anyway. Years passed. The world shifted. We moved out of Brooklyn when rent skyrocketed. Bought a little house upstate with a creaky porch and a backyard full of dandelions. He wrote more books. I opened a counseling center. We adopted a dog. Lemon hated her. They eventually made peace. Once, while grocery shopping, someone came up to us and said, "You guys are that couple from the news years ago, right? The fake boyfriend thing." Nathaniel smiled. "Yeah. Except we're not faking it anymore." The stranger nodded. Figured. No one fakes love like that. And maybe that's the point of this story. It started with a lie. It ended with everything true. Time, like love, has a way of sneaking up on you. Some days you wake up beside the same person you've woken up next to for years, and you still get that same electric pulse in your chest when they smile. And other days, you forget to kiss them goodnight because the baby's crying, the dog threw up, the sink's leaking again, and there's a deadline looming over your head like a storm. We had days like both. Yes, we. Because Nathaniel and I weren't just a story that got a happy ending, we lived the ending. We made it work through all the parts people don't show on TV. After we moved upstate, life slowed. In the best way. I built shelves with my own 2 hands. He planted tomatoes and killed every one of them. We hosted potlucks for neighbors who didn't care about his last name or my past. We built a community, small and warm, full of laughter and mismatched chairs. Eventually, we started fostering. It was Nathaniel's idea. He came home one afternoon, covered in flour from a cooking class he was taking to impress our future kids, and just said, "What if we opened our doors to someone who needs what we had?" I didn't need clarification. He meant love. He meant safety. He meant a home. So we did. Our first foster was a 15-year-old boy named Micah. Angry. Guarded. Smarter than both of us combined. He'd been in and out of 5 placements before us. Didn't trust anyone. Didn't want to be touched. Didn't even unpack for 2 weeks. But slowly it changed. Nathaniel taught him how to drive. I helped with college apps. He taught me how to play chess. We watched horror movies until late and argued about plot holes. We celebrated his 18th birthday with cake, fireworks, and an envelope from Nathaniel with tuition for his first year at community college. Micah cried. Then he hugged us both and whispered, "You were the first ones who didn't give up on me." We cried too. The years kept coming. Gray hair. Wrinkles. Bad knees. But also new memories, vacations, milestones, lazy Sundays where love was quiet and constant. Nathaniel's memoir became a required reading at several universities. He hated that. Said it made him feel ancient. I opened a second center downtown. And one night, long after dinner, long after the world had gone to sleep, we lay on the couch, our legs tangled, the dog snoring at our feet, and he turned to me and said something I hadn't heard in years. "Do you remember the first thing I ever said to you?" I smiled. "You insulted my outfit." "Right. And you said I looked like a bankrupt Instagram model." "And now look at us," I said. "Married. Boring. Happy." He brushed his thumb along my jaw. "Not boring." Then he paused. Looked at me a little too long. "What?" I asked. "I think I'm going to die before you," he said softly. It wasn't dramatic. Just honest. I blinked. "That's a hell of a segue." "I mean it." "I know. We sat with that. Not in fear. But in understanding. Life has an expiration date. We all know it. But real love builds itself into the cracks of time. It prepares for goodbye not with dread, but with gratitude. I want you to promise me something, he said. Anything. Promise you'll keep telling our story. Even when I'm not here. I took his hand. Kissed the palm. I will. But you should know you're very hard to forget. He got sick 5 years later. It started small. Fatigue. Dizziness. Then a diagnosis that dropped like thunder, an aggressive form of ALS. There's no way to explain what it feels like to watch the person you love slowly lose control of their body, their voice, their freedom. But he never lost himself. Even when he couldn't hold a pen, he dictated pages to me. Even when he couldn't walk, he insisted on being pushed outside into the garden every morning. Even when the world shrank to a hospital bed in our living room, he made jokes. Told me he wanted a Viking funeral, set the couch on fire and push me down the Hudson. I stayed. Every hour. Every night. Every bad day. Every quiet one. Because love doesn't stop when the body does. And because when someone gives you their truth, you owe them yours in return. He passed on a cold October morning, while the leaves turned amber and gold. I held his hand until the very end. He didn't say anything dramatic. No last words of great wisdom. Just a breath. A squeeze. And then, silence. After the funeral, I sat in our garden alone. Micah was there. So were friends, neighbors, readers, students, volunteers, people whose lives he'd changed without even knowing it. But I couldn't hear anyone. I could only hear the memory of his laughter. Then someone tapped my shoulder. A teenager. 17 maybe. Nervous. Holding a copy of Nathaniel's book. Did you love him? He asked me, voice trembling. I looked him in the eyes. Every day. Even the bad ones. Especially the bad ones. He nodded and said, I want that someday. You will, I told him. But here's the trick. It never looks like the movies. It doesn't come with background music. It doesn't always start with fireworks. Sometimes it starts with a lie. He tilted his head. A lie? He asked. Yeah, I smiled. A fake relationship. A contract. A mistake. Something that feels small and stupid and impossible. And then one day, you wake up and realize it's the truest thing you've ever known. Now, every year on our anniversary, I walk the Brooklyn Bridge. Same place where we stopped pretending. Same place where he kissed me like the truth. I bring 2 cups of bad coffee. One for me. One for him. I talk to the wind like he's still there. Maybe he is. Because some stories don't end. Not really. Some stories stay. In letters. In rings. In laughter. In love. The end.